Adam Harris here. So just kicking right off into the economic calendar for this coming week. So there is plenty of news, but I think the real big kahuna is going to be the FOMC. The Fed's interest rate decision. There's an expectation of making a cut, which traditionally can have the effect of strengthening the currency. So when we get to the charts, that could be adding weight to the idea of seeing a stronger dollar this coming week. Plenty of this as well. I think it's interesting. Bank of Japan and the UK as well, also interest rate decisions. Not really expecting any changes there. So if there are any changes there, that will be a little bit of a surprise to the shock to the system. So that being said, let's go to the charts. Start off here with the VIX and have a quick look. So the VIX is operating at very low levels, seems to be relatively calm. Market indicating at this time it is not concerned about anything or on edge about anything. Let's have a look at that dollar index. So when we have a look at the weekly charts in isolation here, we've had a small retracement. We've had a bit of a bullish candle here. Not bullish structure, bullish in terms of color. We've produced a swing low. We've broken higher. We didn't really close above the high of that. So it's an attempt to move higher. It is an attempt to break outside of this range. This was something that I did talk about over the last few weeks, saying that we might see a pullback and another attempt. The only other thing, I really would have preferred a deeper pullback. I really would have preferred a deeper pullback to here before taking a run. And yes, looking back, we could see that the dollar ultimately turns out to be so aggressively strong that we see a breakout, and obviously it was going to break out. But I have also seen, especially if we go to the daily, I've seen a very similar looking pattern here where we start heading up higher. Previously over here, exactly the same sort of thing here, ultimately fails and comes back within that range. So in other words, I am just highlighting here that there are lots of signs of potential for it to break out, but there's also some small subtle hints. So the things that to me normally indicate it's going to break out is when we get a small fail like this. It's not a very strong rejection. Often the following candle, when we see sort of most of a body and a little bit of wick, often the next candle can follow through and break through on that. So there is that supporting it. Obviously, the longer we're in a range, eventually the likelihood of breaking out becomes a real possibility. And then, of course, thirdly, just saying that we've got this pullback, we've produced a swing low. It has been very strong recently. There's a lot of stuff going on in the market. It's pulled out and wants to break out to continue on it. Okay, so, and then when we look at the majors in a moment, it's going to support that idea. But I also want to say that I've also, as an analyst, have to look at contrarian evidence to that might be holding it back, and that is the fact that it really has never done a decent retracement here on the daily as well. It's been very overextended. It's coming to the top of the range. It should be weaker ordinarily, and therefore a return back into this range is still actually a possibility based off all of that. All right, let's move on to the majors and kind of have a look at this. So one of the things that I take of note here, sort of looking at this on a daily aspect, is we've gone from a downtrend on euro dollar into a range. We've got a failed breakout of the range, back in ping-ponging between these levels. We finished Friday with a nice bullish candle off this level of support. Again, this also really hasn't done a decent retracement. So yes, it is range bound. We could see it consolidate and then just continue on. That's very possible. Alternatively, we could see if it breaks up this week, starts to come back up and break through this, then I would expect to start to come back towards the center of the range and complete that retracement that it never really did before. So I'm looking really for both aspects to this. I do find it interesting that the whole of last week it really didn't move very far and then closed a little bit higher. It's starting to show some signs of bullishness. Let's just see on the 4 hours what it looks like over there. So on the 4 hours, and this is a very small minor thing here, we've started to break upwards through this trajectory. Again, that in itself is not conclusive. I'm just saying here that that we're getting mixed signals with that. So let's move across and have a look at cable. So cable, again, also here, cable has got this upwards sloping trend line. It hasn't broken down through that. So arguably this larger, bigger picture uptrend is still intact. However, we did produce this almost a swing high. We've broken the low. There we go. And here it is indeed underneath that 50-period moving average, and it's looking more and more bearish, or at least looking more and more like a push further lower to the downside this week is a very feasible thing. Okay, so we'll see. So again, that's why I say if we suddenly reverse this week, we've had a lot of weird things happen lately. Markets are being pushed to their limits. So yes, at first glance, or at least I would say largely, it looks as though we have a lot of dollar strength on the table. Dollar yen. So dollar yen is stuck. It's forming this shape, this I was going to call it a triangular shape, pennant shape, whichever way you want to kind of call it. It is stuck between these levels over here. I was looking for a pullback on the yen pairs for trades. I had a couple of trades that got stopped out. Basically, effectively that, because there is no clear direction here, it's set up to head lower and then just reversed immediately. And so there was a Swiss yen and, of course, dollar yen that didn't ultimately trigger. So this one didn't trigger. The other one was a losing trade. So this I can now get rid of. I wanted to keep it up here for you to kind of see. Well, I wrap that up. Just surge right back through that. And so what we have now really is finding out what's going on with it here. You can see on that weekly. Here on the monthly, it's disregarded that bearish candle, starting to push back on that. Again, a little bit unusual. It doesn't have to follow the rules, but generally speaking, what I mean by that is it doesn't have to do what we say all the time. Bearish candle below that level, follow through, break the low. I would have expected it to head low. It hasn't done that yet, but the month is only halfway through. So my point is here is that the markets do appear to be swinging a little bit wildly. Dollar Swissy. Dollar Swissy does look bullish, though. This does look good for the dollar. We've got a nice double bottom here. We are pushing high. We've been going down for a while. We've got some nice sort of bullish MACD over there. All of that sort of supporting the idea of it heading higher. This was a nice little bull flag, broke through that. All of this really hinting at, for me, makes much more sense to see further upside for dollar Swissy, which supports a stronger dollar. Then you have a look at dollar CAD. Dollar CAD is on fire. It's clearly broken out of its range. It's retested it. It's not that overextended on the monthly, considering it's been cooped up for a while. The weekly is starting to look very stretched, but it still looks relatively healthy. The daily actually looks pretty good. MACD's kind of started to go a bit flat here. Overall, it's a breakout through resistance and a retest. It looks okay. But this, again, supporting that idea of a stronger dollar. So just continue to climb to that direction. What I would say is clearly where we are now is a significant level, looking at 1.4. And this gives it quite a bit of freedom to head up to that 1.4675. So that almost certainly appears to be where it's heading. And you can see the strong reaction when it gets to that. So I wouldn't be surprised if we become more and more overextended on the way there and then get a very strong kickback. All right, gold. Okay, so gold. Last week we spoke about it having that sort of lack of direction. We could see this week it attempted to break out, looked really strong, super strong, gets up to the 2700 level, gets kicked right back. So first of all, what does that tell you? It tells you overall gold isn't as strong as it was back here. Otherwise, it would just have kept going. In fact, it wouldn't have done this whole thing. It doesn't really know what it wants to do. So it's consolidating here, tries to go up again, gets kicked back down. That doesn't mean it's out. It just means that if it produces a series of high lows, if we see it start to work its way back up again, we could then see a breakout. Because what it would be doing during that period of time is consolidating, taking a bit of a breather, and then, of course, it could kick off. Conversely, so if it breaks and closes above this, I would consider this uptrend back intact, and I would expect it to keep going. On the other hand, should it break below these lows over here, break down through this upward sloping trend line, and of course ultimately break through this level, then I would expect a much bigger correction to the downside. Basically, it's just a mess at the moment. It's trying to decide what to do. That monthly chart is overextended. It's really trying, there's a lot of buyers keeping it above a certain level, but not enough buyers to keep it going beyond that. So that's what I'm looking for this week. Again, I'm going to use the weekly candle to see if we break these lows and start to head below these lows over here. We'll gain momentum. It'll start to pick up bearish speed, and then we'll test this level if that's going to be the case. If it stays above these lows, find support in this area, and then takes another run at that level, we could see a breakup. But the point being, gold right now is just ping-ponging all over the place. Crude oil. Crude oil continues to work its way into the corner of this wedge where it could potentially stay there until June or July next year. No breakout to the downside just yet. Overall, it's just ping-ponging and ranging on the daily. The weekly is still looking relatively good. I'm only looking to see if it breaks above previous highs and breaks up through this downward sloping trend line. So far, it is very much continuing to form that, and just very tricky to trade because, as you can see, it is swinging wildly as it compresses into that wedge shape. Let's move on to the global indices. So the Dow this week continued to head lower. On the weekly, it looks beautiful. It's a very nice natural retracement back down into the moving averages. The monthly is interesting to me. And so this week, again, really, you can see that that is almost institutional selling. It's very consistent, just marching soldiers, going right down, just sell, 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 or potentially profit take, whichever way you want to state it. We've got 45,000. We've got a nice round level here. We didn't have any bearish divergence there. So to me, this doesn't show that the trend is inherently weak, just that it was a bit overbought and maybe needs to take a bit of a breather. So this coming week, what I'm going to be looking for here, this is what I'm most interested in, is to see that even if we do break lower, do we find support? Do we finish with a rejection candle here? Do we have a strong finish to the week? All right, if we don't, yes, we're then much more likely to continue to head lower. Obviously, that sounds like I'm just stating the obvious, but we could see a drop lower this week, a recovery, and then finishing higher. What I do find interesting, look at that S&P 500. We've got this very sort of twin or tweezer impact here, which is a little bit of a U-turn. Price goes up, comes down, and a break lower here would make sense for price to come back down towards the moving averages. So the Dow appears to be leading the way so far. Price a little bit overextended on the monthly, a little bit on the weekly, but it's been going for a while. The markets have been just going and going and going, driven largely by Bidenomics. Now, we've got the NASDAQ. Also here, excuse me, you can see a consolidation here and a breakout and a nice run, but it is starting to become a little bit overextended there. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cough in your ear. That's rude. I apologize. Still fighting off a cold. What are you going to do? And a little bit overextended here on this. The daily, of course, continues to create new highs. So the MACD looks great here. MACD looks great here. So the trend itself is intact. I have spoken about going parabolic. You know, in isolation, each thing looks really good. But when you step back and take a look at it, it's really just pushing and pushing and pushing. So the question is, will something this week possibly have an impact or cause the market to take a bit of a breather? Look at Russell 2000. I like this. We've also come back. Weekly correction this week. Same thing. Weekly, we needed that. We were due for one. Nice little correction. Will we get a nice small green candle or bullish candle this coming week? Or are we starting a bit of a correction here, coming back down towards these previous levels? Okay, markets could do with that. It wouldn't be a bad thing. It's not the beginning of a bear market necessarily, but it is the market taking a bit of a breather. And it would be just in time too for the holidays. Let's have a look at Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, swinging wildly, trying to get through this area. Even as I speak right now, live, it's trying to break up through that level. I wouldn't necessarily call it free and clear. These are kind of still signs of exhaustion over here. It does continue to push. However, it's possible we could finish the month lower. I'm just saying that we're halfway through. Things can change. It is continuing to push up. It is still nice and bullish. It managed to break through this, so we can remove those, because they are no longer useful to us. Never broke below these levels here, so we can remove that for now. And it is continuing to trickle higher, but there's no doubt it's struggling a little bit in this area. So for now, we're a little bit overextended on the weekly. We are very overextended on the monthly. We're not that overextended on the daily. There is some bearish divergence. So for me, it's not tradable at this point in time. It's overextended. It's overvalued. I'm looking for a deeper correction. I'm looking for a minimum correction here on the weekly. So interesting. Yet another instrument or asset class, but certainly Bitcoin, maybe not cryptos across the board. Bitcoin pushing its limits. Okay, pushing its limits. A little bit like someone has slipped tequila into the punch bowl. And that in itself, by the way, should be a red flag. Yeah, you can see, excuse me, here, there's a hanging man here. So what does that mean? It just means it's pushing and pushing and pushing. Not really creating any new highs, but there are a lot of buyers pushing from underneath. It's running out of steam. You can also see here it's sitting at a major level of resistance and a significant round number. So what does it mean? It means that if we start to break below these lows, we will have that deeper correction on the weekly time frame. Let's have a look at Apple. So let's run through the Magnificent Seven. Yeah, I said in air quotes here. Okay, so not that overextended on the monthly, but getting there. Okay, starting to look quite aggressive. That weekly looks beautiful. Just beautiful, steady, steady, steady buying here. Starting to increase the wicks on the top, so starting to slow down. 250 in that area here. This looks good. A little bit of bearish divergence here, I won't lie. There's a bit of that. This looks good. So again, that weekly potentially looking a bit exhausted. So, you know, we could see a bit of a deeper correction this week. Microsoft. So Microsoft also testing key levels here. I'm not sure if you're picking up on this theme like I am. Just everything, you know, has been running for a while, is hitting levels, key levels, or is overextended or stretched or top of the range. A lot of that stuff happening here. And that doesn't mean it's necessarily just going to reverse. There could be some sort of event that might even not be on the calendar. There could be a political event. Maybe another CEO assassination or something crazy that just triggers something in the market. So just trade with extra caution this week. Microsoft. So sorry, just to go back to that. Microsoft here, not looking bad, but also not looking super strong. I'm expected to attempt to continue on, but it is sitting at a major level of resistance. So let me just put that in. Let's just mark those levels, and that's really what I want to see how I can deal with that. Amazon. Beautiful. It's on fire. Is definitely starting to become overextended a bit. It's in that start of that area on that monthly. A little bit overextended on the weekly. On the daily, it's had a really good run. Again, MACD continues to make new highs. MACD here trends higher, looking really good. MACD looking really good here. So all of this across the board looking very healthy and very strong. But again, take a look at it. It's starting to accelerate. It's starting to pick up speed. Okay, so this angle changing here, it's going almost straight up. It's going a bit parabolic, which means that at some point in the future, which could be over the next couple of months or next few weeks, we could see a bit of a deeper correction. Again, let me stress that. It takes ages to turn around and go from a bull market to a bear market. We've just got into a bull market. I expect more likely to be a pretty strong correction, not necessarily anything more than that. But it would be interesting. There's a lot of fear-mongering out there potentially about there being some kind of big event where the markets are just too overextended and there's going to be a bit of a market crash, which, there's always going to be that kind of stuff. What I'm saying here is that the charts are showing that they are stretched a little bit thin, but otherwise they're very happy. Okay, they've got juice. Alphabets, Class A, you can see here breaking through this level of resistance, keeps wanting to push. That doesn't look overextended. That doesn't look that bad. We haven't closed at these new highs just yet, but we're looking good. Again, here we're starting to flatten out a little bit. This looks okay to me. This looks okay to me so far. Not too concerned about that. Meta having a little bit of a pause in its weekly thing here as well. Looks okay on the monthly. Looks really steady. You can see just such steady behavior overall. Some wicks starting to return. A bit of exhaustion starting to show there. A little bit of bearish divergence creeping in on the weekly. So also, again, hinting at possible slowing down a little bit, but very early days to say that. Now we have a look at NVIDIA. So NVIDIA has come back to this upward sloping trend line. Remember, we broke out of the downward sloping one. Let's get rid of this. We're now back to the upward sloping trend line. So why is this important? Well, shorter term or medium term, it means that if we break through here, we can reasonably expect it to head back down to 123 or 120. And if that doesn't hold, we can then expect a deeper correction from here. When you look at it from a monthly perspective, it actually kind of makes sense. Look at this exhaustion. It just struggles to get through this, managed to break through, but then just couldn't go much further. It's trying and not going further, trying and not going much further. So what does that mean for me? Well, really, I still expect the potential for this to come back down. I think coming down to 194 would be a bit far, but certainly coming back down towards 110, 105 is a possibility. All right. It hasn't produced a swing high just yet, but showing some definite weaknesses. Bit of a very messy head and shoulder pattern here, which means that, yes, 120 could be on the table. And Tesla will finish with Tesla. Tesla continues, obviously, to reach for the sky. This just continues to keep going. It's at 436 at the moment, but no doubt, straight up. Parabolic, without a doubt. And, a little bit of a cup and handle. Some people might argue about that, or an inverted head and shoulders, whichever way you want to put it. That MACD continues to climb higher here. It's still climbing higher here. So at this point in time, Tesla has still got juice. Believe it or not, it's insane, but there you go. But it has gone parabolic. And so what does that mean? It means that when it corrects, there is a strong likelihood that when it corrects, the correction will be big. That the correction might find that it works its way all the way back down to 250 or possibly lower. Okay, so just that's the problem with going parabolic, is eventually it's just too much. It goes too hot, too close to the sun, and eventually crashes. So that being said, lots of things going on here. I'm cautious, super cautious as we progress into the holidays. Big changes coming in the US with a change of administration. Lots of things going on. Taking a break from the markets and just calming down, having a cup of tea, spending time with your loved ones, whatever, battening down the hatches, relaxing, reading books is probably the best thing for your sanity, just to recharge your batteries so that we can head into 2025. I've still got a couple of things to do, so I'll still be around for a bit. But here, wrapping up what we see on the charts today, just wanted to show you how many of the charts look like crude oil, for example, looking potentially like it wants to break out. The dollar index maybe wants to break out. We've got a couple of things that look overextended. They need to come back. There's a lot of things. It's unusual. Nothing is just ticking along halfway through its kind of motions. Everything seems to be at some kind of a key point. So that just is interesting to me. I don't know if it's good or bad. We'll have to just see. I haven't seen it before. That's why I say I'll be cautious, and let's just see how the week goes. Trade sensibly. Have a great week, everyone, and I'll speak to you